You know, in a perfect world full of peaches and cream, I would like to believe and have my faith in humanity that we're all on a similar page that free speech, pretty cool fucking concept. Now, unfortunately, it's not all peaches and cream, and many places in the world do not possess the same levels of free speech as other places, and you can't just run your mouth about everything that you want to run your mouth about. Luckily enough, in a lot of Western civilization, you can pretty much do a lot of things that in other places would be outlawed or frowned upon, and most of the time being able to be who you are and do what you want is a guaranteed right. Which begs the question, what is the moral gray area when you are spreading something that is actively inciting violence on others and intolerance and pushing your beliefs on other people in a way that can not only be dangerous but destructive and even potentially violent? Many political movements, you will see violence used as a way to riot people. It will always be these massive violent protests that lead to change, that lead to things in the world that need to happen. Oftentimes, the way that these issues are poised and the way that it falls in the gray area is it will be on the fringe. You will be able to agree or disagree with something. Now, a lot of times these things will happen with basic human rights, but what exactly do we get when we put it in an artistic way? Ladies and gentlemen, NSBM, the genre that is simultaneously so polarizing, it genuinely baffles me how it can somehow be the most praised possession, the fucking trophy wife of a bunch of neckbeards, incels, and people who just really don't give a shit and listen to it anyway and separate the art from the artist, yada yada yada, and the plague and disease of the other half of the community that is frowned upon in such a way that if Zeus could come down from the fucking Olympus heavens and strike down the people who listen to it, they would not piss on the graves of. What is NSBM? Well, I did a whole fucking video on it. I literally did a rough guide to NSBM, which I will link in a pinned comment down below if you haven't seen it. You can go check that out for yourselves. And in my opinion, it is the genre with people with severe fucking daddy issues. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm not looking to get my hands dirty in that way, and I'm just poking a little fun, taking some piss out. Realistically, NSBM gets a weird reputation. It's easy to chalk it up to just being, hey guys, you know the Holocaust? You know what would be cool is if that like fucking happened again. When you get something about National Socialism and when you get something that just hates the Jewish people as a whole, you're oftentimes gonna get some weird beliefs. But you guys know how like shitty infomercials are like, call in the next 30 minutes and you will get this limited edition tea kettle and egg beater that no one fucking cares about. That's basically NSBM because it truly is the gift that keeps on giving. You aren't just signing yourself up for racism, you are also signing yourself up for a whole host of xenophobia, homophobia, transphobia, as well as a general misanthropic view of the world, oftentimes a lot of anti-Christian views, not just anti-Jewish, but anti-Christian and anti-Muslim views, and just generally a disdain for humanity. And I get it. It's easy to chalk it up to, they're racist, stay away from them, they're not worth your time. And while I understand, and I am a little bit Switzerland on the topic, and I do separate the art from the artist because I think you're a fucking hypocrite if you think that any of your artists or bands are holier than thou. They have skeletons in the closet, I fucking promise you. So get off your high horse and take the hat off and stop acting like you are holier than thou for listening to an artist that you think is morally better. It's kind of weird how we put morality and humility on this scale where it's like you can kind of make an exception or push something into the steel cage of kind of in the middle ground. But come here, let's get level for a second. Let's talk about the dangers of NSBM, because that's what this has all been leading to. And I wanted to kind of set the stage, make it a little fun, make it add some levity to this situation, because it's a very deep topic, and it's something that affects a lot of people and something that gets a lot of people whipped up into a frenzy. And why is that? I've talked about NSBM multiple times on this channel. I've talked about the intricacies of it. I've talked about the history and background of it. I've made multiple videos about it because I think it's a fascinating subgenre. At the end of the day, I'm not going to crucify you for listening to something that you genuinely enjoy. And if you are getting something out of this music, if it is affecting you in some way, or it's speaking to you or resonating to you, either lyrically or musically, whatever it may be, or if you're just separating the art from the artist, I don't think that that is outright worthy of criticism, and even if I personally don't partake or enjoy that type of music, I'm not going to sit here and act like I don't listen to artists and musicians that are corrupt or are wrong or are vile or have some shitty beliefs that are astronomically diametrically opposed from my own. And chances are most people are like that too, even if you think that you're so good for not listening to NSBM. With that being said, I want to also say I am very anti-censorship. I don't think that you should be silenced ever. I am very, for the most part, cancel culture unless there are genuinely reasons to cast someone aside, cast someone out. If there is genuine proof and reason to look at someone and say that they don't deserve to have a platform, that they should be deplatformed, I'm not for just canceling people at the flip of a dime because someone says something mean about them on Twitter. I've never been one for that type of thing, and I very much am pro-free speech, and I think that should be a given, that should be mandatory, and anyone who is opposite of that, I just think are fucked up. I would much rather have someone run their mouth and be stupid and be just complete dumbasses and put their opinions out there in such a way that you're able to identify them than literally them go behind closed doors and do it. Because newsflash, I don't know who needs to hear this or whose egg I'm about to crack here, and I apologize, we gotta make some motherfucking omelets, but if you genuinely think that the people who have these opinions are going to suddenly not have these opinions because legislation makes it illegal or something along those lines, or they're silenced or they lose their platform, no, it's just going to make them more secretive, and it's going to cause an echo chamber because they're going to insulate themselves with a bunch of other people who have their similar ideas. And you have literally seen that happen with the fucking NSBM movement. If you silence or if you make people feel like they cannot be themselves and be authentic and truthful to their own beliefs, all you're going to do is cause this little microcosm to appear. And you've seen it with all these little underground facilities and nightclubs that it's played at, and these underground scenes where people gather with one another that are all part of this Aryan sort of tradition and this neo-Nazi tradition. And I'm not calling everyone that listens to NSBM a fucking neo-Nazi, because it is a vast, wide spectrum. And from a philosophical debate, I think the dangers of NSBM, it really heavily varies on what direction you're coming from. Because honestly, on one hand, you have the people who genuinely do not like Jewish people or Christians or people of color. They have this harsh outlook. They genuinely are fuck you to that, and there is no reasoning with them. They are one step away from the fucking Ku Klux Klan, if not in it already. They just play it off as a ghost costume on Halloween. I don't know. That joke sounded so funny in my head. But then you have the more complex side of the spectrum. And if you listen to people that actually, actively follow NSBM, especially, I read a lot of comments on my Varg videos, I've read a lot of comments on my NSBM videos, and whenever I talk about this topic, there are some genuine people that thank me for keeping an open mind and platforming and talking about things that people aren't really wanting to shine a light on, because it's heavy, it's difficult to talk about. That being people who are proud of their heritage and have roots with their Saxon and sort of Nordic roots, and having that heritage and lifeblood and pure blood approach. Now, pure blood as a concept can rub a lot of people the wrong way, because instantaneously when you will hear someone talk about it or hear that even brought up, you will immediately, your mind's going to go to racist. It's racist. It just is racist, which I understand where you're coming from with that, because at face value, as a topic, as a concept, it is pretty fucking racist. But boiling it down to that, when there are genuinely dangerous, violent people who incite this violence, isn't fair to the people who have these cultural roots and these ethnic roots that lead them to have a specific tie to either a religious tradition in the pagan or neo-pagan way, or something that ties them to their culture. And regardless of how progressive you think you are, or how liberal you think you are, and you want to keep things moving along and progressing as a society, you have to look at these as cultural people who have these opinions and beliefs for a reason. It can be transgenerational. It can be something that is passed down through generations. And when it comes to generational trauma, when it comes to generational passovers, especially in parts of the world where you aren't getting much influence from the rest of the world and it's the only thing that you know, you're not going to have the input of something else that is supposedly better or more ethical ethical or more moral. It's the only thing that you have to adopt, and unfortunately, this happens all across the world. It's happened with me, it's happened with people I know, it's happened with literally millions of people, and you hear it all the time. Having to unlearn trauma, having to unlearn bad parts and internalized feelings that you have towards a variety of things. I would be the first to admit, and I have no shame in admitting this, that growing up, I had a lot of very harsh beliefs and some very bad internalized feelings towards a lot of marginalized groups and a lot of people that I ended up not only becoming amazing friends with, but also found out that in many ways I was not only a lot like or a part of said groups. And when it comes to that internalized feeling and that internalized rage, or not even rage, but just the way that you believe the world functions, just the way the world turns around, it doesn't automatically make you a bad person. And if anything, proper education and proper informing is one of the best ways that you can help these people unlearn these dangerous things. You can't blame someone for being ignorant. You can't blame someone for being oblivious. On the flip side of that coin though, and this is the not so happy part of this story, NSBM at its core is fucking dangerous. I don't care what anyone says. Anytime there is a genre that is solely based around imperialism or neo-Nazism or Aryanism, whatever it may be, whatever you want to call it, whatever fucking shade of the rainbow you want to dignify it as, I genuinely don't care. At its core, it is rooted in hatred. It is rooted in bigotry. It is rooted in intolerance. And even if you are wanting to be an outcast, and even if you are a fan of that culture and fond of that, complete music aside, anytime there is a movement that is intolerant and bigots towards any sort of marginalized group, I genuinely just cannot condone it much of the time. Now, does that mean that I'm not going to listen to the music or support an artist knowingly or unknowingly? That's not what that means at all. I'm not talking about whether or not you support an artist or not, or separate the art from the artist. That's your call. What you do with your own listening, that is the beauty of modern age of internet and technology. You can do whatever the fuck you want. No one has a gun to your head. I'm just solely talking about the movement as a whole. And then you dig into different parts of the NSBM movement, and you see in like Austria and Romania and Germany and the Netherlands these neo-Nazi coalitions that are basically wanting to make another Reich. And then you go in the Nordic regions and it's a little more ethnic and it's a little more cultural. And I think that's where a divide is, because NSBM as a scene has a lot of different paths. It's basically like a big tree with a lot of different branches on it. The Nordic people are much more pagan and neo-pagan in their approach, and they have more ethnic roots to the reasons that they believe what they believe. But if you go into places like Germany, the Netherlands, Austria, Romania, Slovenia, you start to see that, especially maybe even in the Balkan region that I've noticed, you will see less of those cultural ethnic roots and more so just bigotry and intolerance. And then you go over to Japan and you see that NSBM takes an imperialist approach, a very nationalist approach. Look at like Reek of the Unzen gas fumes, which do I even need to mention the name Reek of the Unzen gas fumes? And the worst and most dangerous part of this music isn't the fact that it's given a platform and a voice to the people that have this intolerant view and has this bigotry. And that's bad enough. That's saying something. I think the worst part about it is just the fact that it gives a community. You are far less to think that you're in the right if you don't have a bunch of people agreeing with you. And whenever you fly something under a banner, you are going to make a community around it. And when you have something like NSBM, which is so polarizing and divisive, and you are shunning people who even remotely talk positively about it at all, not giving them the chance to speak about why, or trying to find out why they tick, or trying to educate them more, or provide a reason why they maybe shouldn't be supporting something like that. And I'm not talking about the music, I'm just talking about the beliefs and supporting it. You aren't giving them the chance to talk about it, and so they're going to naturally go to the underground, and they're going to go to the people who are going to reaffirm and reassure their beliefs and their thought processes. And like I said, when you get that echo chamber of a bunch of people thinking the same thing, it becomes a lot more easy to feel like you have some credence to your beliefs, because regardless of what the rest of the world makes your reputation around, when you already have this community that is built around being outcasts of society, and then you outcast outcast them even more by shunning them aside, they're going to come together, birds of a feather flock together, and they're going to sort of just wrap around like a coil and just make their beliefs each other's beliefs until it warps and twists into such an amalgamation that they all think they're in the right. And while you may not hear about big events of people, shooting or bombing or killing people, it genuinely has happened, and there has been violent cases. But even past that, these people are taking these feelings into their everyday life, and it's going to affect the way that they treat other people. And the groups and communities that NSBM notoriously goes after in such an aggressive way are going to be the targets of this aggression, are going to be the targets of this ire and this intolerance. The pure hatred they will feel for these communities and for these individuals are going to make them potentially incite violence on them, incite passive aggressiveness, pure aggression. And when you are risking literal violence, it's not hard to see why so many communities feel the need to either hide or be in constant fear just for existing when groups like this are just roaming the world. And depending on where you live and depending on what the connections are to an NSBM scene or something that is adjacent to it, you could be in genuine danger, especially considering you may not always know when you're interacting with someone like this. And then if they discover that you're a part of a community that they do not only agree with, but genuinely hold such resentment towards, that they think you are subhuman and inferior and disgusting and vile, who's to say what could happen to that person, especially if there's someone that not many people care about or know the location of? I don't fucking know. It's a dark, morbid topic to think about, but it's easy to chalk NSBM up to, oh, it's just a bunch of Nazis, or, oh, just separate the art from the artist. But when you dig into the intricacies of what can happen as a result of making this seem normal to the people that are adopting it and not trying to help people and just immediately shunning them, you are just being part of the cycle yourself. You're gonna repeat the cycle, and you are adding to the issue yourself by shunning people immediately if they say they listen to NSBM or support it in any way, because all you're doing is silencing them into a corner and making them feel even more outcasts than they already do. And when they already hate the world and they already have this cynical, pessimistic view towards everything, it's not hard to see why people are going to suddenly just be adverse to even talking or speaking up about it, because naturally, if you feel like society hates you and you feel like you're this person that is worthy of hatred from the rest of the world, you're gonna hide, you're gonna go under your little rock. And when you have a bunch of other people around you being like, trust me dude, it's okay, I get you, come get these tattoos, come to this underground facility, come to this warehouse, come to this nightclub, we're playing some music, this is my band, this is what we're all about, we get you, we feel you. It's that camaraderie and that unspoken or spoken understanding that provides someone the reassurance they need to have a second chance at life when they feel like the rest of the world hates them. That festers, that festers, that festers until you take those beliefs out into the rest of the world. It's a toxic cycle, and I think that proper education, reaching out, and not treating NSBM listeners like scum is honestly the first step to help adapt people into society in a way, because it's not necessarily about assimilation. It's about just talking about human rights and right from wrong and not judging people based on the color of their skin or their identity. And even if they have a cultural or ethnic background or feeling, not using that as a weapon to hate and try to neutralize the existences or eradicate the existences of these people that they want to erase because they see them as subhuman or tainting their blood, tainting the lifestyle that they want to lead. Showing them through proper information that they can exist in this world without taking that into the rest of the world and just living and let living. It's an important lesson that a lot of people aren't willing to face or look in the eye, because it's much easier to just say that you hate something that you don't properly understand. And that's how most of the world turns. Not understanding, not having a solid grasp of that which we are unfamiliar with. And it's easy to be scared and to have this phobia. And I think that's something a lot of people miss out on, is when you put phobia at the end of something, homophobia, xenophobia, transphobia, whatever it may be, you you are implying a fear, a deep-seated fear. Phobia literally means a fear of something. And I think a lot of people try to dog whistle and use a buzzword to be like, oh, well, it's stupid because you're basically saying that you are so scared. Ah! No. It's a metaphorical fear. Fear doesn't just come in the way of, oh, I am in so much danger, I'm going to scream my brains out. Fear is more of a concept than just that, and it can manifest in many uglier and more hateful ways than just screaming out about something that makes you frightened in the middle of the night. It's a fear of the unknown. It's a fear of that which we cannot understand. And when we don't understand something or we are adverse to something, it's natural to feel fear and confusion. And when those emotions mix with each other and they're added with people screaming at you and casting you aside and calling you a monster that is not deserving of anything, that fear is only going to grow. And then fear can turn into anger. Anger can turn into violence. But I want to know what your guys' opinions are of this topic. Let me know down in the comment section below. I know it was a little bit of a heavier one, but I really wanted to talk about this. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is. My name is Jay Morris, and I'm signing off saying farewell.